Hello, all of you vaingloriously wonderful people. Welcome back to my $1 billion GTA Online garage tour. Today, we once again join my first character in his nightclub garage to take a look at 8 Benefactor vehicles in my collection, which are worth over $13 million combined. We have SUVs, supercars, and off-roaders, many of which I have a lot to say about, so let's get started. What better car to kick things off with than the Stirling GT? Originally released 10 years ago with the first part of the Ill-Gotten Gains update, this stunningly gorgeous car shot to the top of the Sports Classics class, dominating every other car that dared race against it. While that dominance faded over the years as new vehicles were introduced, nothing could take away the Stirling GT's charm. The beautiful and timeless design, the unique gull-wing doors, and the vicious crackles when decelerating all add up to a car with very few rivals. It remains absolute perfection. Then, Hal's Special Works came along and breathed new life into this incredible car. A whole host of new cosmetic options were introduced, including numerous liveries and, at last, the ability to add an actual spoiler to the car. Previously, if you wanted to increase the traction of the Stirling GT, you had to select the spare wheel option. And while that is fine, it was definitely a limiting factor when it came time to design your Stirling GT. Thankfully, the ducktail spoiler changed that. The HSW upgrades not only provided a huge number of visual modifications, but also improved performance. Top speed jumped from 113 miles an hour to over 156, and its lap time fell a full 5 seconds. While it was unable to reclaim the top spot in the class, it is almost within half a second of the number 1 car. HSW took what was an incredibly fun car to drive and turned it into an absolute monster, and it is nearly impossible to not giggle like a little kid when driving it. All of this adds up to earn the Stirling GT a spot in my top 10 favorite cars in GTA Online. While it has been on that list since its arrival 10 years ago, the HSW upgrade solidified its standing, and I highly doubt that any car will ever come along that could threaten its place. Speaking of cars that once dominated their class, we shift to supercars, starting with the Krieger. When this car arrived with the Diamond Casino and Resort update, it and the Intermission shot to the top of the class. While the Intermission managed a slightly better lap time, the Krieger was able to achieve a slightly better top speed. Its more predictable handling made it relatively easier to drive at speed than the Intermission, making it the top pick for many players when it came time to go racing. While its overall design does tend to lean a bit toward generic concept hypercar, it still looks pretty great. Even when sitting still, the Krieger looks fast. Granted, those looks come at a steep price of nearly $3 million, and that is before you begin adding any performance or cosmetic upgrades. It's a good thing that it continues to hold its own amongst the A-tier supercars, since you won't be able to buy much else once you own one. The 50-car garage on Eclipse Boulevard is home to my next car, the Benefactor LM87. Like the other 2 endurance racing inspired cars, the S80RR and the RE7B that we looked at in my Annis tour, the LM87 has huge amounts of grip, letting you sling it around a corner with ease. That grip is backed up by the highest top speed of the 3. Yet when it released with the Criminal Enterprises update, the best it could muster was 6th place in the Supers class. It is ever so slightly quicker around a lap than the other 2 endurance racers, but the difference is small enough that you can have some really fun racing between all 3 cars. It does, however, pretty much cost $3 million, and that is, again, the price before you begin spending any more money to upgrade it. The downside is that this is a car I often forget I own. It sits in what I call my race car garage, an ironic name because these are cars that, for the most part, I don't actually use for racing. Instead, the name is derived from vehicles that were clearly intended to be race cars, even if they aren't competitive at the top of their class. That brings us to the first of two off-roaders from Benefactor, starting with the Dubsta 6x6. This one has been around a while, being introduced to GTA Online way back in 2014 with the I'm Not a Hipster update. At that time, you could not easily purchase it despite its relatively low price of $249,000. That is because it was locked behind a rank requirement of level 100, which meant you had to wait some time before you could buy one. Being an avid off-roader in GTA Online, I was really looking forward to getting the 6x6. When I finally reached level 100, I plonked down $250,000 and headed to Los Santos Customs to upgrade it. Upgrades complete, I headed for the first bit of rugged terrain I could find, and I was immediately disappointed. If you give it just a teensy-weensy bit too much throttle while climbing a hill, the wheels begin to spin and you're done. Worse, its 6-wheel layout causes its handling to be a bit unpredictable, which can lead to strange behavior when it lands a jump, while also contributing to a tendency to roll over. But it gets worse. While it can bash its way through other cars, it does not take much damage before its engine is rattling and eventually smoking. On the upside, it can drive through fairly deep water, it can seat 6 players, and it looks pretty badass. Before we move on to the next 4 vehicles from Benefactor, I want to remind you that this is the 4th video in what will become a pretty long $1 billion GTA Online garage tour. If you want to learn a bit more about this series, then be sure to check out the first video in the playlist. I own over 580 vehicles in GTA Online, and that collection is worth nearly $1 billion. I am going to feature every last one of them, so if you are a fan of collecting vehicles in GTA Online, then be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss out. And if you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit the like button and drop a comment letting me know which car you love or which one you hate. Or maybe just leave an emoji that sums up how you feel about Benefactor as a car manufacturer in GTA Online. Now, let's get back to the cars. In the first half of the Benefactor Garage Tour, we took a look at the Glendale Custom and talked about how the limo version of a stock Glendale was quite popular with oligarchs, dictators, and despots. In light of that, I always felt that a limo version of the Glendale would be the perfect addition to the game. Well, Arena Wars finally delivered with the Bruiser, though it is not quite what I had in mind. Instead of stately luxury, we got this. I have named my Apocalypse Bruiser the Dictator in a nod to its roots, but upon closer inspection, maybe the Bruiser is not too off the mark of the ideal car for someone running an authoritarian regime. It has a huge cage out back that has clearly kept some dissidents locked up far too long. You can slap some machine guns on it, equip it with a fairly powerful ram weapon, and even add in different types of proximity mines. While its low front bumper can, despite the massive ground clearance, cause problems getting over obstacles, the Bruiser can be equipped with a jump function to help you clear pretty much anything that might be in your way. Just be careful driving it. The Bruiser has a tendency to suffer from crippling understeer, and its stopping distance can be measured in miles, not feet. Let's take a step back from the Fury Road and into the parking lots of strip malls across America with the Benefactor Serrano SUV. This is not to be confused with the Serrano that we looked at last time. Their names are very similar, but this is the Serrano with a long A sound in the first part of its name, whereas the convertible sports car is the Serrano with more of a short U similar to the sound of the word Sue. But said out loud in the sentence, and it can be easy to mistake one for the other. I suppose that is entirely appropriate for this SUV though, given that it is pretty much the poster child for generic compact SUVs everywhere. Yeah, you can definitely add on a small handful of visual modifications to give it a bit of an edgier look, but those can only go so far. That might make it the perfect car for doing crimes, however, as its ability to blend into the background means no one will see you coming. Of course, you have to do crime just to obtain one, because while it is cheap enough to steal and store in your garage, you can no longer buy it on in-game websites. Benefactor is no stranger to SUVs and saw 2 variants of the XLS released with the Finance and Felony update. This is the armored variant, but there is also a less expensive, non-armored version available. Well, it was available, you can't buy it anymore. But you can still buy the armored version, and despite the ugly armor on the doors, is really the one you want anyway. Even though it weighs about 15% more than the non-armored version, it has slightly better engine power, quicker gear changes, and better brakes, plus it does not suffer from as much off-road traction loss. All of that adds up to a top speed that is 5 miles per hour faster. Since it's armored, it can withstand a single round from most things that go boom, and its windows offer a bit of bullet resistance. So I guess this SUV is for all the Karens of the world who happen to be married to heads of state, or the guys who get chauffeured around in Glendale's. We end our tour of Benefactor today with not 1, but 2 Dubstas. This is not the Dubsta you see driving around in traffic, however. This is the Dubsta 2, sometimes referred to as the Dubsta Custom, and it can be fairly rare. So rare, in fact, if you want to own one, you have to get it to spawn in either its gold or chrome variant and then store it in your garage. This used to be fairly tricky as they did not spawn very frequently. Having someone driving one nearby helped a bit though. That's why I kept one on each character to aid in helping other players find them. In the early days of GTA Online, their nearly $24,000 sale price in Los Santos Customs made them a decent way to earn some money. Of course, that's when you could still buy a badass looking 6-wheel drive SUV for under 250 grand. When the Bikers update dropped, you could form a motorcycle club and assign a member as road captain. That road captain could, in turn, request one of several vehicles, including the Dubsta. And wouldn't you know it, that Dubsta is one of the rarer Dubsta 2s as well. That change made it much easier to get the gold and chrome Dubstas to appear so that you could steal one, since you no longer had to know someone who owned one in order to increase the chances of them appearing. So, what is the difference between this Dubsta and the one you see in traffic? Not much, really. The chrome on the Dubsta 2 is blacked out, and it comes equipped with an offset spare tire that cannot be removed. The spare tire that you can add on to a regular Dubsta does act as a spoiler, however, meaning it has just a bit more grip than a Dubsta 2. Their performance is identical otherwise. I'm not really sure why I haven't gotten rid of the chrome one on my second character. Maybe I'm just nostalgic for a time when stealing cars off the street and selling them was a viable path to getting enough cash to buy other cars and properties. And that wraps it up for part 2 of Benefactor in my $1 billion garage tour. Next week, we will be right back here in the nightclub with my first character to take a look at one more Benefactor, the Terror Bite. Don't forget, if you enjoyed today's tour of Benefactor, be sure to hit the like button and leave a comment letting me know which car was your favorite, or which one you absolutely hate. And if you want to see all of the more than 580 vehicles I own, get subscribed to notifications so you don't miss a single video. Until next time, I'm Brandon, reminding you to stay vainglorious.